Hey, welcome to the Strategic Success Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Fricke. Thanks for tuning in. If you're wanting to learn more about how to do a subject to deal as a real estate investor, don't rely on a 60-second TikTok. Come to one of my workshops. I have my next one scheduled on Saturday, May 17th in the Tampa Bay area in Florida. It's offered both in person with limited seats as well as online, especially I know we're going to max out the in-person. So with that being said, this workshop is where I deep dive my concept of safe subject to. Because there's no such thing as a 100% safe subject to deal, but how can you do one as safely as possible? And so this is where I deep dive the process, the paperwork, the due diligence, how to run the numbers, and then when to pull the trigger. You know, what makes something a good deal versus one that you should maybe not say yes to. You definitely want to come check this workshop out if you have interest. Maybe you've already been doing subject to deals and you want to learn more. Go to CourtneyFricke.com to either get your in-person or online ticket today.
Welcome, guys. Longtime friend of mine is Scott, but I'm really excited to get to know you a little bit more. And so this is the episodes in the series where me and Courtney talk about residential real estate with people who are in that world. Scott, it's exciting because you're kind of rebranding yourself and taking a little bit of a spin. Not giving up on real estate from an agent standpoint, but also adding value in another way. And I'm excited to let people know what you're doing.
Yes.
So why don't you kind of talk a little bit about y'all's firm, and then we can get into a deep dive into what you and Scott are doing.
So my name is Ryan Ehrhardt. I'm the owner of Chabert Insurance, the Ehrhardt agency. A little bit about me. I'm from the South Shore. I grew up in River Ridge. Went to Jesuit High School, LSU, and then I started working for a State Farm agency out of college. Worked there for about 5 years before I decided that I wanted to go independent. And I have friends that were with Chabert of Louisiana. So Chabert Insurance has 10 different locations now. At the time, they only had, I think, 4. And so we are a part of, we have an office in Elmwood on the South Shore and in Mandeville. We started April 1, 2020, if y'all remember. Yeah, that was a tough time, especially, you know, starting a business, didn't have any employees. I had one that was waiting on the sidelines to come join me. And it was tough.
Baptism by fire, man.
It was. That's basically how we had to take it. It was all hustle grind.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, it's interesting that you had a State Farm background, very rigid and structured. I know I have some buddies who actually went through the process of having their own agency, and it's a difficult process to go through. I had a buddy of mine who was turned down from the opportunity. He actually moved to another brokerage because of that reason, and he's still successful today. But how much did you learn working and seeing the system in which State Farm operates to be able to move over to the independent side and make an impact?
So I truly think it's a blessing because, and I don't want to speak ill of anything, but it's tough to sell with only one carrier.
Yeah.
Sure.
Not to have many.
A whole different model.
It is.
Yeah,
And
like apples and oranges.
And especially they don't have an option for homeowners, which is kind of the name of the game in our area.
In our area, yes.
Where you're from in Alexandria, they probably write everybody. But the New Orleans area, which I wasn't looking to move, the entire time I was there is we're gonna have an answer. We're gonna have an answer. They came up with an answer, which was Dover Bay, which is a company that they broker out of. So you could write it. It wasn't competitive at all.
Yeah.
And so I kept asking, you know, because I was believing that there was going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. 5 years later, I went through the process. It's called the agent aspirant process. And I was interviewing for a spot downtown, for a spot in Covington, and then a spot in Laplace. And didn't feel right. Didn't feel right. I had a friend who was doing really well with Chabert in Prairieville. He's still obviously a very good friend of mine who was a State Farm agent. He gave up his agency and went independent. And so he said, hey, just take a couple days, take PTO. I got there, we sat down, we went through 3 hours of work basically. And I said, I'm making the phone call.
Yeah.
So what's the difference? What's the main, obviously let people know the value of having several different carriers you can write through.
So I'll give an example for an auto as opposed to a home. So say you were calling up and you needed auto insurance. For us, it's the same process. You take down their name, their date of birth, their driver's license, VIN numbers on vehicles, whatnot. For them, you type it up and you get one rate. You could change coverage and whatnot to the chance of rate.
Manipulate it, but yeah.
Right. For us, you type it into a system and we have a rater and it comes out Progressive, National General, at the time MetLife. And
Like all the different people who are bidding at like a quote for it, right?
Exactly. So you always have an answer. There's always going to be a carrier that can get cheaper, or, it just depends on what you want to be with.
Yeah.
Now for homeowners insurance, there was no option at State Farm unless you wanted to do the Dover Bay or Citizens.
Well, and a lot of people, I think that's really important. So I think so many people become loyal to the carrier, and all their life they were with them. And then obviously we're going to talk more about the insurance crisis in a little bit, but I feel that so many civilians who are not in the real estate industry, they don't understand. You basically pigeonholed yourself. But by having an insurance broker who can, basically get all these different carriers to quote your policy, you then have options. And as we know, options help, especially right now. And so it's one of those things where it's important for someone when they're working with an insurance person to understand, are they just only allowed to offer what their firm offers, or is it, basically your firm represents a lot of different carriers, like, and you basically have different options. That I think is, would you guys agree that's something like a lot of people just don't know that that's really what's out there?
And they don't know that certain independents don't represent every available carrier.
Yeah, that's also true as well.
That's a big deal because, we represent almost every available carrier in the market. So we will always have an answer for you.
Yeah.
And so that's why, that's basically what we've kind of honed in on is we're going to give you every option. We're going to show you every way that we can get your price down or coverage up, whatnot. But at the end of the day, when you're about to renew, we all know insurance goes up. I hired someone in the office whose entire job is reshopping your policy. So 45 days out, he's calling you. His name's Jake Bergeron, very nice guy. He's going to call you and he's going to go through everything we did, and it may be a little annoying at first, but you got to get all the information again. We're just going to reshop you like you're a new customer because we want to ensure, number one, we don't want to lose you as a customer. Number two, we want you to be satisfied and stick with us forever.
And I think that's huge because you guys are being proactive and have someone whose sole job is that. Because on the other hand, you get someone who, so I'm on WWL every weekend on a live call-in show. I get people call me in all the time. They're like, well, when should I start shopping my rate? Well, it sounds like you guys are being proactive for your clients versus
They do it before they even get it.
Yeah.
So we get it about like 3 days before they get it in the mail. We
Yeah.
try and call them before, especially if it went up.
Sure. So I think, and this is maybe a naive question, but I think it's good because we're doing some one-on-one discussions about what insurance brokers can do. And so I think there's two things that somebody who's shopping insurance or a customer of you guys is want to know about. They always think about price until they have to make a claim. So when you're talking about price and you're working on that, you're making sure they're getting the best deal on the front end by shopping them, and then when the renewal comes up, you're making sure they're good on that end. But let's talk about when they got to make a claim. When somebody goes to somebody who what is it called, non-independent insurance broker, like they obviously, you still call your rep because the insurance being held with the company that wrote it. But for you guys, how does that relationship work with the actual carrier, being that you're a broker, when somebody's got to make a claim? Do they call you guys?
Yeah, I hope they call me. I try and get them to call me. In every email, I say to call me. They are making the claim with the carrier, but I try and hold their hand while they're.
I think that's important because, how many people, obviously, our area, unfortunately, we have acts of God. Unfortunately, a little bit more consistent than we want. But most people are like, I don't even know what the first thing that I do.
Also, too, I suggest for them to call me because sometimes it may not be something you want to make a claim over.
Exactly.
Because people think, oh, this happened, this small little incident. Oh, I'm going to make a claim. Well, maybe you don't.
Exactly.
Maybe you don't. And I'm not gonna tiptoe around the fact that the insurance could go up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, hey, I really don't think this for your case should be a claimable.
And if I remember right, you can even open the claim but not go all the way through it, and you can even have some issues with it. And so like that advice is,
Yeah.
and I might be mistaken saying that, but I remember something along those lines, someone with
So
a scenario with that. But like that's golden advice though, is like you should have some basically real estate is a team sport, and it's important who you have on your team because I mean that phone call can help you basically be a sounding board of should I do this?
Well, that's also the goal of separating every individual in this company or in this industry, whether it's real estate, title company, lending, insurance, is who's going the extra mile
right.
to be in front. Like, talk to me, let me help you. You're a client of mine, let me help you.
Yeah, I always look for the helpers. Like literally because they and it's easy, they stand out. Because there's so few people are like, let me do the bare minimum and like let me just be transactional versus relational. Like what can I do in the best interest of my client? And that's huge. So Scott, tell me how are you bringing your real estate background, on the real estate salesperson side into
So I got my insurance license December 2nd.
Yeah.
I think that was the goal. He said, "Can you get it by December 2nd?" I'm like, "I got you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it." The reason is so I can push through that December month, those slower, quote unquote, slower month, to be ready for when January hits. I'm like, "I got it."
Which was a great plan.
And I talked to Jarrett, I talked to my wife, I talked to Ryan. I said, "I just got to know this lingo."
Yeah.
And that was a nervous thing. I just got to know. Let me have the confidence to know what I'm doing, and then I can go. And it took about a month
Mhm.
that I got the lingo down to where I'm like, okay, I can talk to you. I can use my skill set that I had for 12 years as a real estate agent and still a real estate agent to talk to a client in the insurance world, and also feel confident that a lender can send me a quote to realize he knows what he's talking about. And I can go hold their client's hand for the greater good, which is to get to the closing table, which then translates in January of like, I had my first conversation in insurance with a client who also said he was a first time home buyer. I said, I got you. I said, just to let you know, I'm also 10 plus years in real estate. I know what you're going through. And I can feel through the phone call his breath of fresh air that he got. I'm like, no one talked to me about this before. I don't know what I'm doing.
and it's
I
also
got
how
you.
you talk to them, right?
Correct. I found out what he was nervous about, which meaning this was his first time.
Yeah.
So I found that out, and I used both skill sets to get him to the finish line of like, okay, I'm ready to go.
But let's talk about how much experience you truly have. I mean, from as long as I've known you, when I first met you, you were a manager on a high performing real estate team in Mandeville,
Mm-hmm.
correct? And your role was to train other real estate agents on how to have those types of conversations,
Correct.
right? And so, just through that experience alone, you've got a leg up on most people who are getting in the insurance world have never seen a real estate transaction from beginning to end.
Correct. And that's why the light bulb went off when this world was changing. I'm like, this is a lot. You get burned out. Like when you're doing the amount of transactions and the deals that you're doing in real estate, it's like, can I keep continuing to do this without changing something? And
Also
what?
why it was so quick for you to transition.
Yes,
It's
it
not
did.
going to be a month for anybody who's new to
Correct.
insurances because you have so much experience.
It wasn't unknown. Like I could have these same once I got out my own way of like, oh, I don't know this. Like I'm like, no, just be you. But yeah, so realizing why I should do this in the long game with how important insurance is, and it's not going anywhere, and it's so important that I realized, going back to what you say about the crisis, is insurance was affecting buyers buying homes. So I'm like, how can I now help them be comfortable in general? And that's what I can do.
Let's dive into that. So if you don't mind, let's get into the difficult conversation with insurance right now, which is this Louisiana insurance crisis. Nothing that any of us four in this room can do to change it, right? We're all, call it victims or whatever. It's happening to all of us. But the reality is that although we can't go out there and physically change it, how are you guys helping clients basically understand what's going on and help them basically survive through it, approach it the best way, and continue to ride through this? It's a conversation a lot of people don't like to have right now, but it's a reality.
Basically, at the shop, every
Yes.
advanced carrier give every subset of coverage that you can even imagine. Because, I mean, when it comes down to it, a lot of these people are just trying to make ends meet. They may need this year to have high deductible. They may need to have a split policy, which is have a homeowners excluding wind with one company, and then have a wind policy with, one company that offers just wind policies or Citizens, whatever is going to give them
Like
the
piecemeal
cheapest
it to
option.
wherever they need to.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I know for me, I do business everywhere, but
You guys are in 3 states, right?
we are. But it's Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas is new. We just added Texas. But mostly Louisiana, Mississippi is where we have a lot of camp. But like, say for example, I do a decent amount of business in St. Bernard. St. Bernard right now is a hotbed for high insurance.
I just bought my first investment in Araby in the last 40 days or whatever. I don't know, something like that.
Be strong right here.
So you know anything about the parish?
Love Arabic.
Yeah, look, I'm not
Born
I'm
and
not gonna
raised,
lie.
baby.
Hey, it has a lot of my attention right now. But like, yeah, absolutely. So that is a hotbed for insurance.
Right.
There's a few pockets in the greater New Orleans area that are just a hotbed for insurance issues.
Right.
So when
I know how Scott would handle how he handles it. I want to hear how are you handling these?
I'm going to
situations?
give a simple answer, but I think it's a powerful answer. And it goes back to breaking it down to insurance and real estate. How I was able to have an easy real estate transaction was to have the upfront conversations with the client to know exactly what they want, how they want it, when they want it. So shifting that to a client, aka I might have that conversation first with a lender. You get a quote. Hi, lender. Where do they need to be at? Where does this client need to be at to be comfortable? That allows us to then go shop everywhere to one, let's validate that, hey, we're high all around. Okay. Or then I just did my job on quoting different carriers. Now we got you the best rate. And then you can see like this company compared to this company, this one was higher, this one's lower. I'm going to go this route. Now, how do I get to my end goal to be able to afford this home? And it's all from a conversation up front. And then even having a conversation with the client to be like, what are you comfortable with? What don't you understand? How can we get you happy to where you can purchase your home and not have any worries?
Yeah. I think that's huge. What that sounds like is leadership.
It's
That's all it conversation leadership, right? And it's saying, hey, this is what's happening in like we can't change XYZ, but there's things we can do within the current realm that we're in. And this is how we are going to help you understand it
correct.
and prepare for it. And then let's acknowledge what this looks like.
And I'm not disagreeing that there's not an insurance crisis, right?
Sure.
But what I've also seen in this world and the human is they just want something consistent. So if the rates go high in real estate, they're going to sit back and watch. But if they stay the same, they'll be like, all right, this is the world we live in. I'm not going to not buy a home. I just got to shift my mindset of how I'm going to buy this home. So same thing with insurance. How many people, it's a crisis, but how many people it could be crisis averted if they had a conversation to understand
Right.
what they're getting into.
Exactly. Look, so many people, so many fears, so many worries, so many, even complaints can be calmed through a proper conversation. And most people just don't want to take the time, or they can't take their, they kind of can't even convert it from the, I don't want to say legalese, but whatever the industry terms are in insurance. Like, hey, how can I have a civilian understand this?
Correct.
Well,
Right.
you meant it from a defensive place too. I think that one of the things that you said that I love so much is asking them what they want to get out of this and creating reasonable expectations around that.
Right.
I mean, a lot of times when we run into a title issue, I tell people all the time, I'm never going to tell you no. I'm just going to give you the solution to the problem. You might not want to take that solution. And so, you want to buy a house. This is what you qualify for. And this is the insurance options that you have. I'm not telling you no, but I'm telling you this is what you're going to have to deal with if you want to accomplish that goal.
So I always say, and even like I said, I'm gonna keep comparing real estate and insurance in my world, but it's like as long as there's a yes out there, I'm gonna go find it.
Yeah, 100%.
I love that. So I'm going to ask a question, and I'm open to dialogue this back and forth. In the real estate investing world, a lot of us are, well, even in home ownership world, we're getting pummeled with the cost, right? Again, we can't change that. There's some things we can do within the actual policies, whatnot. But if someone, whether it's they're looking to buy a house or they're looking to buy investments and be strategic, we talked that there's certain areas that are getting basically it's harder in an insurance. Are there any areas where it's easier? So if someone's actively looking to buy, whether again it's a primary or second home or an investment, like whatever. Are there any pockets in the region that might help,
Sure,
or
brand new
like types of properties?
Brand new construction in Madisonville.
Hell yeah.
You can get the perfect insurance premium.
Yeah, if you're talking 1,500, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So, if we're being realistic, like lower premium, but still
Something like
allows
the
great
range
house.
a year, you know.
Yeah. I would say on the South Shore, Harahan, River Ridge, Old Jefferson. Really, it's gonna be tough. I'm gonna have to talk about like where it's not.
Yes.
Anything along the lake is gonna be very expensive.
Well, hold on. For the Jesuit guy.
Yeah.
With North Shore.
Yeah. Oh yeah, North Shore.
I'm messing with you.
No.
But it's true though. It is south of us with Sinead.
Yeah. No, I'm messing with you. I had to give you a Jesuit.
So,
I had to give you a hard
so the
time.
tough areas.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the North Shore, great area, 70448.
Okay, so it's Mandeville.
Yeah. Madisonville, 70471.
Other part of Mandeville.
Other part of Mandeville, there are tough areas.
Right.
Slide Ellis tough.
Yeah.
Everything in that Oak Harbor subdivision is tough.
Yeah. Yeah. I get calls all the time. As a solutions-based investor, I get calls all the time. Agents like, I don't even know if I want to take the listing. I was like, let's talk first. I'm like,
Right.
I mean, because again, there may be a yes, but it might look like something.
That's probably the toughest area on the North Shore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, for sure. That area. And then I know like on the South Shore, parts of the parish are really tough right now, and parts of the East, New Orleans East, are pretty tough.
Oh yeah. I mean the East, that's the toughest area in all of New Orleans.
Yeah.
Metropolitan is the
So okay. And so you're talking there's certain areas that are helpful. I know someone once explained to me like there's these zones, and if you can start, and so like I've started focusing more on buying in Tangipahoa Parish and into Baton Rouge because it's a little bit easier. Obviously, let's get away from I mean, I got policies. I was like, where's these been? I'm like, where have these been? And okay, but then also the asset type. The younger the asset, obviously new construction is as young as it gets, but a younger model, so 1990, even 2000s and newer, versus the older the property you get into, can be some issues. It has helped me with that knowledge to be like, look, like the crisis is what it is. We all can't change it, but if I can have that information, I can then maybe. So one, if you're trying to overcome the insurance crisis or even just mitigate it, some things that you can do is, number one, don't just pigeonhole yourself with someone who can only quote what their firm offers, but they have multiple carriers. Right. And then, location and asset types, matter. And then, do y'all want to share any thoughts on like fortified and stuff like that?
Absolutely. If that's an option, if that's within your budget to get a fortified roof, I would do that right now.
Correct.
Right now.
They've been opening up those grants. There's been periods they've been opening them up.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's one open right now. I don't know if y'all knew that.
Yes.
But yeah. So the Commissioner of Insurance, all of the carriers that we currently have, they are pushing for fortified. They're going off the Alabama model.
Yep.
Alabama, pretty much everybody in South Alabama has a fortified roof right now. And it is
The quickest we can get there, the better, basically.
Right. You would probably know better than I would about building fortified. Apparently,
So my co-host on the radio show is a building science expert and a contractor. I only have secondhand knowledge from him. But I mean, we talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
And so literally after one of their big hurricanes, when they went down to Alabama and looked at it, it was like they had so few claims because everything was basically fortified.
So big of an impact.
And so basically they're using that as the golden standard. And that's where we're trying to, again, in our area, they even updated the code last year. As recently as I think it was Q1 or Q2 of last year, they updated the building code to, again, try to push things as basically storm hardy as possible, including with fortified. Because you can actually even get fortified, not just roofs, but you can get fortified doors, windows, like basically the whole nine.
Windows is
Hey guys, Courtney, Fricke here. We've got Aussie Steve. And look, if you have a deal that needs to get moved, Southeast Louisiana, even in South Mississippi, we're your folks. We are the largest dispo company, really in the greater New Orleans area, even Southeast Louisiana. We have great contacts in South Mississippi as well. Steve, why do we move more deals than others?
Just we're very deep in this market, so Greater New Orleans can be really confusing for national wholesalers. The comps are hard. We change block for block. We got flood zones. We we get a lot of hurricanes and the likes, and just a lot of the national platforms don't have the buyers on their list. So we are deep with buyers, but we're deep with relationships, which is really important in this market. So we'd love JVing with out-of-state investors.
Like I said, we do a ton of business with other investors. So go to homebuyerlouisiana.com/Courtney, fill out the information. We'll get in touch with you and we'll move this deal along.
Gotcha. So, I mean, and again, we're talking about how y'all are dealing with a hard insurance market. And if somebody is looking at their premium, they don't have a fortified roof, and they're like, man, I can't afford it with this. You give them a quote that says, well, if you get a fortified roof put on, this is the difference it's going to be. How, if the parties are negotiating that as part of the contract term, is that something that has to be done prior to be able to close in order for them to be able to take advantage of the cheaper rate?
Yes.
Yeah. So you'll have to knock that out before closing in order to be able to do that.
Pretty much. So what we try and do is we give the price. There are carriers that we can write it as is and then put it on after, and then they will get the discount.
Gotcha.
Because a lot of times people are setting up so that the day after they close, they get the fortified roof. As long as we get that certificate, we turn it in, then they get the premium sent right back to them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I would bet that the pre-approval or the clear from the lender is going to be, they're going to base it on what the insurance is without the roof, and then have to go back. But I'm sure, but maybe from a client's budget standpoint, if you get approved at the higher rate, knowing that if I get this roof put on immediately, you'll be able to take that cut.
Well,
You can anticipate it
in the
coming.
real estate side, that someone who maybe the house, like so important to get a quote right now before buying, right? Like so critical. But in negotiations right now, someone could say, hey, instead of, can I get a concession that would go towards a fortified roof or something like that to help, something.
Yeah.
Well, the reason it's the day after I had to do it. You got to write it. They can't afford it, but they can pay for it out of their proceeds.
Exactly.
So that check is that title company. There you go. It's made out to ABC Roofing.
Exactly.
There you go. Go put your roof on. It's already scheduled the next day.
Yeah.
So I want to give one example that just shows how important having a fortified roof is. So this isn't on the North Shore. It's in Chalmette. So not great insurance premiums right now. But it's the example I give all the time. My brother and sister-in-law, they live in Chalmette. They live in a ranch-style house. And last year, their insurance went up from $4,500, which is a lot for a small ranch-style house, to $7,000. Okay. We got the fortified roof put on, and it went down to $2,600. Yeah, that's how much of a difference it is.
Wow.
So we can take the insurance crisis back.
Yeah.
Well,
Like
and
fortified
it's, how do people equip themselves is with education, and a lot of times educations come from proper relationships, right? Real estate is a team sport, and so who you have on your team matters, right? And then the other part, it's really that exposure too. So not only having relationships, but what are they exposing you through with the conversations?
Yeah.
And I think that's so huge. And so,
Yeah. So let's transition to the third aspect of this, and I would like to talk about how you guys actually go and market your company. And there's the part of this segment is to teach the audience a way in which they can help generate business for their firm. And you started this company when you were
2020, so just a few years ago.
Yeah, you were 27 years old, which is impressive, and you've been in real estate for 18 years, and I know 12 years. I mean, yeah, that gray in that beard, that's a couple of years.
In sixth grade.
Yeah. But I think it's important to know, like, to be able to start early and have a successful business, and to be able to stay in real estate for as long as you have, you've got to be good at marketing in some form or fashion. And there's a bunch of different ways to do it. I love the ninja selling model. If you're familiar with it, it's really relationship based, but there's people who do the cold call stuff. They buy leads. They do for sale by owner. They call expired listings. So how do you guys go about marketing y'all's company and yourselves?
So we've been since day one relationship based. So at first, especially when you start with 0 customers, you gotta do whatever you can, social media wise, posting every day, trying to get my name out there. But mostly we get business from loan officers and realtors. And at first it was used car dealerships, it was new car dealerships. I went to every place I could think of that they were buying something that they needed insurance on. Hustle, grind mentality. Right now, we pay for some social media leads. We pay, we have an SEO within our website. And then also we're on New Orleans.football with Nick Underhill.
Yeah.
So we're one of the sponsors for him. But we don't. Besides that, we're mostly relationship based.
Yeah.
I know the majority of my business comes from lenders, whatnot. That's actually how I know him. Because of his wife. We work together. He's a lender. Plug.
Yeah. Hung Lee movement mortgage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but besides that, mostly relationship.
So I love. So I'm similar. I'm marketing my company similar. I'm very relationship based. I like to add as much value as I can. I feel like that's what relationship based marketing is. It's meeting with people before you have any credibility, before they know your work ethic, before they know who you are. Figuring out ways to add value to them as much as you can, and so that eventually they give you that opportunity, and then you show them what you can do.
Definitely.
But once you've created the foundation of relationships and marketing, then you have to diversify somewhat, and you've got to be in as many places as you can be at the same time.
Definitely.
And I had that kind of switch flip in my head probably 4 or 5 years ago when I had built a good foundation, and then I'm saying, okay, now I've got to make sure everybody remembers the relationships that we have and be top of mind. So that's whenever I started. I did the Win Nation shopping cart ads. That's when I was doing the magazine ads. We did the events where we were inviting people in, and then we started really pushing social media. But yeah, so I totally agree with you. And I think that the relationship based marketing, whenever you prove yourself, is longer lasting, and it's an easier long-term. I say that, but then you're also giving a lot of energy. And I don't think people realize how much energy it takes to be a relationship-based marketer.
Right.
Because if you are constantly adding value to people, it means you're constantly pouring and giving and giving and giving. And it also is a fresh air whenever you have loyal clients that understand your value and what you've done for them over the years. But I respect that, and it is a lot of grind and hustle, and you just got to be in as many places as you can be at the beginning to see where the relationship's going to come from. But I think the key to relationship marketing is understanding what your personal values are. And then trying to find other people that share those values with you, because those are going to be the people you can build the best relationship with.
So I'm glad you said that. Is the reason why I'm loyal, very loyal to a fault of where my whole real estate career, even though I've been with a couple of people, but I was loyal with them. But I don't align myself with people that I don't have those beliefs. So like Ryan is a younger guy starting his company and growing his company and who he's with, and say, hey, I think of insurance, I think of Ehrhardt Agency, right? So that was a big deal to me to move forward of like, hey, I just need to follow in the footsteps of what he's done, and I can grow something with a skill set that I have that might be different from somebody else. So that was huge on the being like, hey, when somebody thinks of in real estate and insurance, they think of Scott.
So I said this at one other event that I had to speak at, and I'm open with it, and I'm open with my clients. So I pay my agents better than other people in my position do. Why? Because I want them to have a full scope of responsibility for the people they are writing. So he's going to make a residual income off of these policies. So he is going to be the one that they speak to every time they call. So if, Sally Q, signed up with Scott, every single time she's going to speak with him.
Which is also, as I'm saying, it's an important thing with insurance is like, okay, you set it and forget it kind of thing. A lot of these older insurance companies will do. Like, for instance, my parents have been with the same insurance agency for 20-something years.
You got some work to do there.
I couldn't tell you the last time they probably spoke to that insurance agent.
Yeah, exactly. And that's in this day and age, especially with the crisis, if you have not spoken to your insurance agent in the last, let's just say 3, 4, 5 years, major red flag.
And also someone else is going to speak to them.
Yeah. So we talked about relationship based with the lenders and the people that you're getting a business from. How much of a relationship, right? Talk about the relationships you build with your actual clients. I mean, y'all talked about it a little bit, but let's hear. I mean, what is y'all's mindset around that?
So every time that they call in, we want them to know that they're getting the best service possible. So whether it be from our service team, which is comprised of my dad, my service manager, my little short thing. My dad was in charge of circulation at the time speaking for 30 years, retired during COVID. I was up a creek by myself. He was helping me at first and never left. Yeah, it's pretty awesome to work with your dad. So him and then Jake, who is reshopping them, either 6 months for their auto renewal and then 12 months for their homeowners. And then this year in 2025, what you said earlier, you got to a point where you thought, that you needed to take away from relationship based and be a top of mind for everything. What we did is we invested in an app so that each customer, no matter what company they're with, like say if they're with Progressive for their auto,
whoever it is, yeah.
yeah, you pull up one app. I don't know if I should pull it up or not. And they'll have everything housed just in one place.
I think that's key. I mean,
Yeah.
all in one place.
Yeah, all in one place. So we wanted to be able to help our customers, whether it be at midnight and they're just looking at their bank accounts and they saw, oh man, I just got charged $300 from Progressive. I need to contact my agent. They jump in the app and they say, give me a call tomorrow morning. Yeah. So
they also have their policy information in there.
Everything.
Because like, what if the house catches on fire late at night?
You can make a claim through the app.
That's wow.
Yeah, you can make a claim through the app. Yeah, it's a
huge value add. And I'll be honest. There's a lot of old school models within insurance that are not exactly jumping into more of the tech based stuff.
Well, they're counting on their client just not calling them back, or once a renewal happens, it renewed. They don't even realize it renewed.
Right. I think a lot of people don't realize that you can cancel your insurance at any.
You can reshop in the middle of a policy,
and then you get the money back prorated. I'm very upfront with that because we're going to win business based off of that.
Well, and I mean the past client or the active client mentality. If you actually give attention to them, they already know how great of a job you're doing. If you're doing a great job, if they're a lead source in and of themselves. So if you just leave it and forget it, you're missing out on a huge opportunity to network.
Well,
and again, we're talking about relationships.
It's not a past client.
Yeah, it's all active clients. Everybody
you have a policy is a client for life.
Yes.
So that's the goal.
Yep. And if they're not, then you've missed an opportunity.
Whereas in real estate or title, once they close or once they're done, they are now a past client.
For sure. So I love that. Relationship-based marketing is definitely the way that I see marketing working the best. Can you, off the top of your head, think of any systems in which your business uses to grow? And you can go deeper on how Jake is part of that if you want.
Yeah. Are you talking about actual systems that we pay for, though?
No, I'm talking about
It has to be. Sometimes it is.
Yeah. So you're just talking about the team,
the way your
the
team
systems.
operates. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you got any thoughts?
Could you step out of your business for a month?
No.
All right. So you're still working on building the operation.
Oh, definitely,
right?
definitely. I mean,
So that's
I think you did well last week when you left for Disney.
The way his operation works, from what I can tell so far from the conversation, is that he has salespeople, and he's got his dad as a sales kind of consultant and managing his service manager, and then he's got Jake, who's on the back end. And whenever renewal comes up, Jake's shopping everybody to make sure that they are going to be in the best rate possible with all the carriers that they use.
So he's pipeline management.
With your current.
I'll tell him that later.
Yeah. Does Jake wear khakis?
He does sometimes. Yeah.
Was he ever with State Farm?
He was not. He was with a title company.
Oh, poor thing. And he survived? Look at him go.
I pulled
Good
him
guy.
right before.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
What's
Sound
his
like people that have been in the Army, you know?
Oh, is he related to Mr. Bob? Interesting. Yeah, that if he has been a part of that company, he's seen how a great company can run, because they're definitely one of they are, like, in the New Orleans area, probably seen as the best title company in New Orleans. And the way that he has been able to do that over such a long period of time, Mr. Bob, it's been impressive. And it's something that, other people can admire who are starting their business and thinking about what we can look to aspire to one day. So he's definitely seen how a great business can operate. And in the title business is not easy. We talked about relationships and the way that you have to constantly be in front of people, especially real estate agents, because they're not always easy to deal with.
I think they're terrible.
It's so
No, I'm no. Yeah, obviously.
So and we talked a little bit about the EOS. You mentioned that you know what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right now year 5, so we turn 5 years tomorrow.
Oh, happy early birthday.
Yeah. And
33 years old. He started at 28.
Love it. Yeah, and year 5, you're out of the ultimate death zone of like the first 3 years. So congrats to that. You won't drop dead tomorrow.
yeah, right now, a big reason why we brought Scott on is because I was in growth mode for myself. I was writing the majority of the policies of the office for all 5 years. Right now, I'm trying to take a step back, delegate, and I want to make the the office as efficient as possible. So I've been listening to podcasts and whatnot to try and learn, do whatever I can on my spare time to, I don't know, basically make it run smoother. Just like, I forgot who said it, if I left for a month, if it could still run just as well without me.
That's the goal eventually.
Yeah.
I think people spend a lot of time, or they struggle with spending time working on the business versus in the business. So how are you doing in that transition of being the one that's been in the business, writing the majority of the policies, and then taking that specific time to say, okay, what am I great at? What am I not so great at? Finding those complementary personalities to figure out what you're even going to leverage, right? What are you going to delegate?
Right.
And then whether you're actually going to freaking delegate. That's the other problem for business owners.
Right now, it's been tough for me personally, just because it's almost like giving your baby away, you know, because I actually enjoy writing the policies. That's something, you know, getting a new policy, it's like a small win. You know, you feel like you did something, you scored a goal, whatnot. Getting away from that is great to feel like, oh, yeah, I can give it to him and it's going to get done because I trust it. You know, I trust my other agents, 7 agents. But yeah, now it's like a new animal, you know, that I'm trying to focus on something that I've never done. I feel like my office could have somebody like a COO, to help me. Yeah, it's just something that I'm going to take this whole year to try and figure out how to better suit the company, what I can put my new talent.
So let's start from the top. Like, so, you know, part of our business planning system that we put people through is the first real meeting is we lay the foundation for a few main points. So
Right.
do you have a value system for your organization?
What do you mean by that?
Do you have like key core values that you hold yourself and your team accountable to, and that you try to make decisions through a lens of these are the things that I use for my organization?
I guess I don't. I don't have anything written down. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I'd say you probably do, but have you put it on paper to where you can communicate it to your team, right? Because that's that point of accountability that I think people forget about, right? It's easy to jump in and say, this is what I expect of you, but when it's not in writing, what is there to reference when you're holding them
Right.
accountable?
Besides like a training manual that I have for them, I don't have something like, you know, honor, loyalty, you know, like I don't have words like
Yeah.
something like
And a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their brain around like why would I just pick a bunch of random words and put them on the wall and try to hold you accountable to it? But what Lauren walks business owners through is that you probably, if you took a group of words, you might have 100 of them, and you tried to whittle it down to the 5. But a lot of people have a hard time after they've kind of circled the first 15, and then they got to highlight just 10 of those 15, and then they got to pick just 5 of those 10. The Once you start kind of wordsmithing what your actual values are, it's really not just one word. It's that word defined in a specific way that's unique to you. And once you've done that, you can take the other words that you didn't choose as your top 5, and they're probably going to fit into one of those 5 main words that you've chosen. And you've created that value, not just leadership in the general sense, but what leadership means to you as a business owner, or to us as a business owner, so that you can start using that as a tool whenever you're not, like, making decisions, hiring people, firing people, and those types of things.
Definitely.
It makes a huge difference. And I would bet that, you know, there's several ways to look at it, but, you know, if there's something that keeps you up at night because of something that's happened, if you kind of reverse engineer whatever that is that keeping you up at night, it's probably going to be related to some value that you have.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that exercise is really important.
And what I found out is that you do have it, you just didn't put it on paper.
Yeah, and that's what I meant if I didn't say it correctly. Yeah.
No, because I'm the same way. Like I can't articulate what I want in life, but I can feel it, which is weird to say. And like I put myself around people that I feel have the common goal
Right.
environment, but I can't write that down, but I can feel it.
Oh, you can. We're going to write it, Scotty. You
I
ready?
can write it.
Yeah, I just try and treat every single person in my office as well as I can. I truly believe in karma. You know, what you do to somebody is going to come back to you.
Correct.
And I think, you know, since day one, you know, people get lost in money, you know, and I've rather take one less dollar because I think it'll come back to me tenfold.
Correct.
By treating everybody as well as I can. But yeah, no, I agree. Those are things that I need to do, and that's what I want to focus on in 2020.
Just so you know, I just made up my mind that this part of the conversation we're going to use for our own content. So, you know, just going to roll with
Oh,
it.
did you know?
Yeah, I did. And so the other thing that we do on day one is that we help people identify what their vision is for their organization and what the purpose of their organization is. And so, for us, the partners at our firm were very clear on we were coming together a common vision. And recently we've realized that we probably need to be more specific to be able to articulate what our real vision is. I mean, we want to be a resource to businesses in St. Tammany Parish and help the businesses in St. Tammany be better.
That's why we exist. That's our purpose.
It really is. And so, our purpose
why we're sitting here.
Yeah. Our purpose is to create an environment where our clients and our employees can succeed all through a common set of values. And we have 5 core values. And so like the podcasting, it is, while we sometimes think this is draining and tiring and we're spending a lot of time putting energy into this, like the purpose of this is for you guys to promote your business and for us to be able to help other business owners, better business owners, through listening to the content. So when you think about it from that lens, we're supposed to be doing this, we're supposed to be having this conversation. And so being really clear about what your purpose is allows you to realize whether you're chasing squirrels or not, or whether you're actually doing what's actually the purpose of your organization, why you created it.
When you're intentional, you scale faster.
Yeah. And then the last part of day one on our first meeting that we do with people is helping them identify what their ideal client is. And people in real estate especially always say, well, I don't want to just pigeonhole myself to one group of people, but.
And I say, fight me.
Yeah.
That's how you do.
And we encourage people to think of it differently, is that if you're really intentional about who you're trying to attract, as long as that group of people is big enough to be able to sustain your business, then you can be very intentional about how you spend your time and where you spend your resources to make sure that you're getting the type of business that you want. And, like our ideal client is very specific, that from a basic standpoint, we've defined them with the gender, the age, how many, their family size, what house they bought, what they like to do for fun, where they get their news, what their goals are, and what their problems are. We've identified it so intensely that we can know exactly where that person's going to be. So if we get asked to spend money somewhere and we know they're there, the answer is very easily yes. And if they're not going to be there, then we can make a decision as to whether we're supporting somebody that we enjoy, that we want to support, that may not be where our ideal client is, but we can actually make an intentional decision. And also to piggyback on that, if your process is tight, the way you operate your business, then likely that the work that you do for your ideal client will be very similar product to what you offer to anybody else. So people are out there hearing you and saying, well, I'm not, like, they may not be your ideal client, but that doesn't mean you're not going to do business with them. You're going to plug them into your system, but what you're talking about and saying and doing, where you're spending your money and time, is going to be where your ideal client's going to be. And so, have you thought much about that? Who you truly want to do business with?
Not necessarily. Like I said, we've been in growth mode.
Yeah.
So anybody. Well, I mean, anybody needs insurance. We've tried to help out everybody that we can, because we can't say no to people, to our relationship partners. Somebody sends us somebody who, is a client that we don't want to take on. It's kind of tough to say.
Well, sometimes
We
your
don't really say
client
no.
in our world is also the vendor. So the lender is technically, I mean, on paper is your client. So what you're attracting to do relationships with that lender, title company, real estate agent, you're attracting your bill to them, and they're gonna come back.
Well, the referral partner is your ideal client, because
Yes.
that's who's sending you more.
Correct. Yeah.
The client is just lanyap that's coming in, but you're going to spend your resources and your marketing dollars going after your lender partners, your referral partner. And so, I mean, that's the point that we try to make. It's like, it's never a position of, oh, we don't want to help a certain group of people. I want to help everybody that I encounter every day. Like that's my personal life purpose, right? What impact am I going to have on every individual that I encounter? So we're never going to tell somebody no. But when it comes down to spending our energy and our resources, our dollars, right? Our hard dollars on deciding where we're going to be on what marketing platforms, what print magazines we're going to use. We're going to put those dollars behind the ideal client, right? And then we're still going to service everybody from there. And so we get that question all day, every day, because being a new brand, even though we're not new to the practice of law, we really had to hit the ground hard from a marketing standpoint. So people come to us all the time and like, can you just tell me how I need to do marketing? I mean, I had an email in my inbox this morning and like, don't y'all offer that service? And immediately I'm like, okay, let's talk about who you're targeting and what you want to say to them, right? You can only do that once you figure out your values, your purpose of your company, where you want that company to go, your vision, and who that person is that you are targeting. Then we can have a conversation about it, because I promise you, if you looked at our budget, you're not going to want to spend what we're doing in all the same places unless we have the same ideal client, right? And so sometimes the answer is, well, let's put in some time, right, to think about that. And that's what helps somebody scale intentionally, not be distracted by squirrels, and not go spend wasted marketing dollars. Because that spaghetti at the wall approach, like, oh, well, I saw these people on TikTok, so I'm going to get on TikTok. Well, our client's not on TikTok. I could give a shit less if we have a TikTok account, right? And then even, when it comes down to some of our attorneys and how their content resonates, is they're following on Facebook? Is it on Instagram? Like you see those differences, but you have to find what works
Well,
for you.
going back to even we're marketing through Nick Underhill and Wallenstein, like
Right.
you're a huge sports fan.
Oh, definitely.
So like the clientele who's listening to that podcast is me. Like
Right.
you and look at we're good. We can connect through a clientele. So you're already doing it.
You're already building that profile.
You don't even
for
realize,
them.
correct.
Yeah.
You don't even realize you're doing it.
The reason why we're doing it is because he's a client.
And he's a client.
Yeah, we
Sometimes your best clients, like when I have, any of our business partners that are struggling to figure out their ideal client, I'm like, all right, think about the client you hate, your
Yeah.
worst client, and think about your best client and start there because you can usually pick that out. And that's immediately we went to, oh, well, yeah, that's a client. We love him. Your values probably align, which is why you enjoy doing business with him.
Yeah.
And so you're going to go spend your marketing dollars there. So it's happening. It's just, are you able to then take that and communicate it to your team? That's where you start to leverage and scale that everybody's moving in one direction towards one common goal. That's what an operating system does. That's what allows somebody to step out of the business and ultimately step in that owner's box, go look for other opportunities because they have everybody aligned into one common goal and everybody knows and has that clear expectation of where it's going.
well, you sold me.
and also, when the two fun questions that I like once you kind of build a profile is what is your ideal client's goal and what problems are between them and their goal, right? I mean, like you said it being a relationship based service provider and having lenders being a big part of that and agents. It's like what is in between the agent and their goal. Agents and lenders' goals is to close real estate deals. It's usually being creative on the insurance, I would imagine, in some form or fashion. And so when you create the educational content around it, it's like, hey, mortgage lender, instead of just saying, hey, world, this is, and then saying what you're going to say, it's like, hey, mortgage lender, if you're having a hard time finding the right insurance for your client, this is what you need to know. 1, 2, 3. And you say that. And so now when you say it that way, when your video goes on social media, every mortgage lender is going to be like, he's talking to me. You know what I'm saying? And so you can be more direct in what you're saying. It's like
and actually add value with your content.
Yeah. And look, we're not perfect at it because when for the first 2 years, we did 250 unique short form videos every single day. So 2 years in a row. So it's 500 videos. And most of our videos over the last 2 years have been like, a power of attorney is this, right? And so like, yeah. Everybody's swiping. Like people don't realize what they need. Some people are interested in it. We get 8 to 10 likes. But if I said, hey, if you're
really comparing our hair,
yeah, you're right.
which I'm gonna win.
But if I said, hey, if you're a business owner trying to grow your business, this is what you need to know about a power of attorney. Now you're going to say, okay, well, I'm a business owner. I'm trying to grow my business. Why do I need a power of attorney in order to make those things happen? Right. Now,
what am I missing out on?
Yeah, way more interested in what I'm saying. So again, the ideal client profile is a huge part of our process on how we teach people to create an operating system. And then, once we get into day 2 and 3, we really get in more of like the nitty gritty, like how you actually manage your team and hold your team accountable. And one of the things that I want to talk to you about, which I think is interesting, is building the ideal accountability chart for your organization. Like Lauren calls it building your utopia. And I have heard people say it's like building the Disney World and what you envision your business looking like whenever you've made it, whenever your business is there, if you're ever going to be there, like what would it look like?
What's your legacy?
Yeah. Like what is the organizational chart look like for you to be able to operate at the best level as you can? And then, and the trick to that is not to build a organizational operating chart based on the team you have now. It's building the ideal chart with no names in it. What roles do I need? What does each role need to be doing? And then go back and say, what type of person is going to fit best in this role? Great. We have that type of a person, plug them in. But if you don't, then you know who you need to be going to find in order for your company operating at the best of its ability. And that is really whenever you're like, be able to really see where your company is going, whenever you can clearly build out that accountability chart and say, this is who I need. And the beauty of all of that is that natural phenomenon, nature abhors a vacuum. The moment that you actually create the space, those people start popping up because you can identify who they are and they'll show up and for you to be able to plug them into your organization and have the right personality.
I guess the thing that's stopping me from that And trust me, especially in these last 3 months, those are the things that I'm thinking of is the time that I have. And I know, like I've said, I'm trying to delegate. Well, it seems like every single time that I delegate something I didn't even think about comes out of the weeds. And I feel like I need to hire more. I need to hire another service person. Probably need to hire somebody who can handle operations and whatnot, just so that I can focus on things like that, that we will ultimately grow.
That's why you build out that organizational chart. It shows you, because it shows you sitting in 15 seats. And then you're like, okay, of these 15 seats, what do I want out of first? Right. And then it also lets you know who you have on your team that are team players. Like when you do that with the key people that are in your organization, they can raise their hand and be like, I'll fill all 3 of those seats for you. I don't want to do it forever, but I know it's going to get us where we're going. So put me in, coach. Right. You put them in the seats and the expectations are clear, and they can take on something right now that they may not even know that they could add value by taking. But once you fill it, it becomes clear to everyone.
See, it's a tough position to be in when you open a business. First off, always
Right.
when you open a business, and you come from a family that nobody's a business owner, so you don't really have anybody to lean on. Also, when you open a business during COVID, I opened April 1st, 2020, and it was tough, because I love my team at Chabert of Louisiana, but they were supposed to come physically to help me do it. And they didn't, because everybody stayed where they were.
I couldn't.
Yeah. And so everything was on me. And so, you fall into bad habit. Now I've undid those bad habits of the last 5 years. But right now it's like I feel like I'm playing catch up on certain aspects because I focus so much on growing and producing myself. And so right now it's trying to get away from that, focus on things that you were just talking about, so that we ultimately can scale and grow and be. I mean, we have the potential to be as big as we want.
Yeah, that's exciting. And I'll tell you a secret. If you have that growth mindset, you're always going to be realizing that you have a habit. Because I wouldn't know necessarily it's a bad habit, because that habit that you're calling a bad habit got you to where you're at today. But the
Maybe
trick,
your best place in the organization.
for sure, and the trick is to know that the habits that got you to where you're at now are not going to be the habits that take you to the next level. So it's constantly learning to shift. And I bet you those things that you're realizing that you have to address because you're delegating things are things that have always been there, but you have the space to actually address those things because you have delegated something else. You're giving yourself some bandwidth to address it. Now, the trick is once you've got your business operating and you have a system of solving problems, you're going to get to where you're getting into the nitty gritty problems that you're going to be addressing. You're always going to have an issue to solve, but if you have a organization that's comfortable discussing issues, then you're going to be you're constantly going to be growing because you are creating space in order to solve problems. And so, like, one of the tools that Lauren teaches is our meeting pulse that we do as an organization, and what our meetings look like on a weekly basis. Every department has one meeting a week, and we have a section of our meeting. The longest section of our meeting on the agenda is solving problems, and everybody is responsible for coming to our meeting with an issue that needs to be solved, and we solve those problems as a group. And so we call it IDS, which is identify the cause of the issue, discuss that issue, and then find a way to solve that problem. And we don't leave the meeting until we do. And you don't realize the issues that you have, or maybe opportunities you have to be better, because you just don't have an environment to. And I'm not saying you don't, but most businesses don't have an opportunity or a place for you to be able to discuss those things.
And being transparent to have that conversation.
Exactly. And having people
It's
feel
collaborative
comfortable.
learning.
Yeah.
Is what I think is a value
Yeah.
of all businesses,
Yeah.
to actually be transparent, to say, hey, I have a problem, and I'm not here to be not afraid to ask somebody not in my position to help me solve that problem.
Exactly. Exactly. And again, the freedom and the question Lauren asked, can your business grow without you? It truly can operate without you, for sure. Once you've created that system of being able to solve the problems on a weekly basis as a group. And then the next part of it is actually growing without you being there, which is something that, it takes a little bit more time and energy in order to get to that point, but at least being able to operate while you're at Disney World and not have to feel the stress of people not being there. So which
And
is
some people don't love the not being there aspect. It's really, really fun for me to watch the transition that sometimes those high performers and high producers, they thrive on closing that deal. And so they want to be put back there, even when we finish their operating system, because they don't like being held back with problems. And at the end of the day, being the executive and the problem solver is not who they want to be. But when you get to the top, that's all you do is deal with the problems every day. If you're not dealing with the hard problems, you're not properly leading, right? And it's fun to watch that because sometimes they're like, you know what? This is beautiful. I love all of this. I'm going to go back to what I'm best at and I'm going to hire somebody to solve the problems. And so you watch that transition happen. You watch that happen when they start transitioning, the businesses to new owners within the organization as well. So cool process. It's all about that growth of self-awareness. And that's part of our plan that I think is different than any of the other operating systems. Because, to be completely honest, operating systems are operating systems. Same business principles that people have been studying for the last 100 years. That's not really going to change, right? But when you tie that in with an element of personal awareness and personal growth through the DISC assessments that we use, that's when you become your best self, your team members become their best selves, and everybody's moving in that one direction.